Hello to live viewers. I was sharing my stream on various social media platforms. Thank you for coming. Now, do Christians really suffer from a learning disability? I'm not sure myself. I know I've been going on about this subject for years and years and years, and I really, to this day, do not know. Surely they know that idolatry is worshipping idols. And if you were Christian, you'd be familiar with the sights of idols and of Jesus and Mary in churches. And even if you were not, you would have to concede that worshipping idols is idolatry. And if you were interested in theology, you could ask Jews or Muslims if conceiving of God as being in any way material or physical makes you an idolater? And the answer would be yes, if the Jew or Muslim involved would be is knowledgeable and honest. Now, even without the confirmation of rabbis and Islamic scholars, your own common sense should be able to tell you that idolatry is the worship of idols. And even if you were a member of a church that has nothing other than the Christian symbol of a cross in your church, you would still be guilty of idolatry because you worship the Trinity, because the Quran specifically mentions that God is not three. And of course, Orthodox Jews who take their religion seriously would not be seen dead entering a church, because churches, in their minds, are places of abomination where idolatry is practiced. And I see, speaking of idolaters, Jim Bowden is here. Hello, Jim. I don't know if you want to join me. I think my short lecture is over. And in case you don't know, Jim Bowden's Catholic, and I was shocked by him the last time I spoke to him when he said, if you're Catholic, you could be an atheist or a communist. It's just a cultural affiliation. And I was kind of jumping up and down saying, look, just either take your religion seriously and do it properly, or reject it and find another one, or call yourself an atheist. But I suppose you could say that you're culturally Catholic. And, culture is very important, because I think a lot of people basically use culture as a euphemism for race, immigration, things that other, groups that they dislike do and they don't like. But culture is basically fluid. It's whatever people do at a certain time in a certain place as a certain group. You can have a good culture or a bad culture. You can have a culture. Well, you can have a drug culture. You can have a pub culture. You can have a drinking culture. You can have, for example, a culture of staff pilfering, or casual sex, of a culture of entitlement, a culture of excuses. So really, we should just accept that culture is a product of law and morality, and morality is obviously a product of what moral system you choose. And I'm saying it's time to think about your moral system, such as it is. What's a moral system? What is your moral system? How is it doing? Is it in good health? Is it even doing the least of what you would expect any moral system to do? And I think these are important questions, and nobody seems to be able to answer these questions. So, yes, I am indeed having a go at Christianity because Christianity is not even doing the minimum of what you would expect a religion to do. What is the minimum of what you would expect any religion to do? It would be to encourage married parenthood, responsible married parenthood, without which you will be suffering from degeneracy and imperial decline if you are already an empire. But it is particularly dangerous if you have a global empire, because then your imperial decline and the degeneracy that you are presiding over is spread globally. And what's going to happen is that the supporters of the status quo will be saying a range of predictable things. They'll be saying, our religion was fine until the Jews came along. But they can't even say that because the Jews were there before Christians came along. So Christians can only say, our religion was fine until liberalism came along. But then liberalism came along and conquered liberalism, saw liberalism, came, and liberalism conquered Christendom. And then, after liberalism conquered Christendom, there were two other political ideologies, such as nationalism and communism, that sought to replace liberalism itself. So that's what's been happening, and Alexander Dugin has written a book called The Fourth Political Theory, saying that Europeans must stop rotating between these failed secular political ideologies and adopt his new one, which is called The Fourth Political Theory. The first one is liberalism, the second one is nationalism, the third one is communism, and he's got a fourth one, which is basically a way of sacralizing the people, which is a kind of idolatry, in my opinion. But here is Jim. Welcome, welcome, Jim.
How are ya? Guess what? I'm not tipsy. I just finished my work, and I'm about to go to bed actually because I got court tomorrow. And guess what? And good old Clay popped up on my computer. How are you? Anyway, you're okay?
Yes, yes. You sound different, youthful even.
Well, there's many faces and phases of Jim Bowden. But anyway, funny you should mention Mr. Dugan, Alexander Dugan. I got all of his books, and now I sound like I'm bloody bragging, but I'll tell you. I'll tell you how Alexander Dugin is a professor at Moscow State University. He's very close to Putin in terms of culture, Russian culture. And the fourth, I got all of his books, by the way. And the fourth, Euro-Asian, and I can show you. I've got all these books here, about 5 or 6 books. It's various articles. But you got Putin. You got he's not a minister. He's just an advisor, attaché to the government, Russian government. And there's a person called Alain de Benoit, a philosopher in Paris, France. I don't know whether you're.
The name that rings a bell. Is he one of those integralists?
Oh no, he is the founder of what's it called? He's old. He's about 80s. He's still living in Paris. Alain de Benoit, French guy, and what's it called? The New Right. Founded following the 1968, the French left and uprising, and that was the counter political party or ideology, and he's the
Mm-hmm.
father of that. And
Mm-hmm.
the other person is a what's his name? Oh, yeah, Professor Tom Sunic, his very good friend. And so you got Putin, you got Alex Dugan, you got Alan de Benoit, you got Tom Sunic, and then you got me. So I'm 5 degrees away from the top head honch. I sound like I'm bragging, but I do sort of get snips and various things from my friends what's going on in Russia and Eastern Europe. So
Mm-hmm.
it's funny that you mentioned that, the fourth political theory. It's a book. It's actually published by Arctos, I think.
Arctos, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So
Um,
I've got all of his books. Yeah. But anyway,
so it's difficult actually reading all the books one has. I know myself that I've got a lot of unread books.
hmm.
But
But
fortunately, online is very good for quick summaries. So we can
hmm.
pretend that we've read the books that we in fact own.
Well, I have read about half of it. I honestly too busy with my bloody work as is.
Mhm.
It's just horrendous. I
You've got yourself a
detest.
new mic, haven't you?
No, I haven't. I just sound sober rather than pissed.
Oh, well done, well done. There was just
Being facetious.
something good
Oh,
and
can you hear
fresh
me?
and new about you. Yeah, I can
Can you
hear you
hear
so
me?
clearly. I
All
can
right.
hear you so
Good.
clearly, and I'm
All
so
right.
glad you're sober, and I'm privileged to be able to speak to you for a change.
Oh, come on. Anyway, it's I understand it's very hot in England at the moment, or Europe.
Yes, it
I
is
think.
high summer, but I've just seen online it says temps to plummet. So
All right.
I guess we'll be having a
Well,
cooler time. It's 25 Celsius today.
exactly. It's 12 minutes past 8 Sunday Sunday evening, and it's exactly 11 degrees Celsius here in Sydney.
Mhm.
Mostly
Yes,
cloudy.
yes. I was talking to an Australian. He said he had to go. He was going skiing. No, snowboarding. He said snowboarding
Yeah, yeah,
because it's
down.
all winter now.
Yeah, it's exactly Thredbo, basically, past Canberra. Yeah, I've been there many a time. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's our snowy mountains.
Mm.
But anyway, now, what's the topic? What I'm trying to, if I can ask you or pick your brain, as to, again, I have not got time. I don't know your philosophy or ideology or beliefs, etc., etc. You can tell me or not tell me. That's your discretion, I suppose. But
Mhm.
the word secular, again, without knowing anything else, means non-religious. Put it in a lowest
Mhm.
common denominator. Would you say my assumption or definition of that is correct?
Mm. Mm.
Okay, so it's secular. So
Yes.
it excludes theo being God, theology, the study
Well,
of God.
yes. So to quickly explain my idea to you, it's
Hmm.
basically Sharia for non-Muslims. And I know this will upset a lot of people, but this
No, it's
basically
not
takes.
upsetting. I cannot make connections. I can't see the nexus between what you just said.
I will explain.
Yes,
I,
please, yes, please
so,
do.
so basically, it would be the commandments of Allah identified in the Quran, and it's basically, do this and never do that, and and so these are grammatically quite easy verses to spot. And I'm saying identify them, list them, number them, and then make them into your legislation, and then repeal anything that goes against these principles, and legislate. If you have laws supporting these principles, and you don't even have to be Muslim to do that. You just understand it as a legal system. Because when I was a law student,
Hmm.
I studied at the time, as it was then, EC law, which has now become EU law. But
Hmm.
basically, you don't have to. Obviously, I was not pro-EU, but it, nevertheless, as a system, as a legal system, it existed, and has transformed itself into something more important than just law for the European community. It's now become law for the European Union, of which the UK is no longer a part. But so it's a legal system, and you can understand, and you might not agree with it, but you can, understand its principles, and maybe if you had to act for your client in the system, you can still get your client what he wants, provided you understand the system without necessarily agreeing with the political intent behind it. That's I hope that's clear.
Ooh.
But I'm
Well,
happy to expand.
yes, certainly. Yeah. What I, how I see it. Again, I could be, I could be corrected. I'm not claiming papal infallibility by any stretch of imagination. But as I see it, again, I'm not a theologian. I'm not a philosopher. I'm a historian, not ancient history. My forte is European modern history and literature. When I say that, it's Russian, French, German, and English literature / modern history. Basically, 1789, the French Revolution, and onwards.
Mhm.
So that's my sort of not trait, but I wouldn't call it. I'm not an authority, but again, I'm not.
It's my area of interest because I did
Yeah,
it at
yeah.
school too. So
Hmm.
we have some
Well, I did
connection
that at
there.
university, so I actually got a few degrees. Anyway, don't worry about that.
Mhm.
Uh, in history rather than law. Law is just a peripheral thing. What I'm trying to say is, I'm always trying to argue history because that's what I think I know a bit more than sociology or theology or philosophy. I mean, I can argue and put a substantive argument, but what I'm trying to say is uh, law, as we understand, whether in our common law, let's talk about it, forget about continental civil law, let's talk about common law, emanates, whether we love it or hate it or criticize, from a Catholic perspective, because the two Oxbridge universities were not Muslim or atheist or Protestant. They were found in the 9th century. Similarly, Sorbonne in Paris, one of the oldest universities, all in the 8th, 9th century. So
You're
this
saying
is this is a history. So just let me finish. What I'm trying to say, by virtue, I'm not saying they're right. By virtue, what I'm saying, with you and I, whether you're any ethnicity, any race, doesn't matter. Any religion, agnostic, Marxist, any ideology, does not matter. We are the product of history. And that history of Western civilization, as we know, which is Europe, Canada, America, Australia, New Zealand,
Mhm.
is founded not on Christianity, on Catholicism, because the first schism happened in 1054. So, if we accept Jesus was born in 33 AD, then the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD, when all the Jews were dispersed throughout, the world, Ashkenazis and various 12 tribes, etc. And they all came to Russia, Ukraine, Poland, and Germany, England. Well, and
I think Jesus was born in 6 to 4 BC, and he died in
yeah,
33
well,
AD.
exactly. I mean,
Just in
yeah,
case people
yeah.
get the wrong idea.
We are generally, of course, yeah. There wasn't any Gregorian calendar at the or
Mhm.
Julian calendar for that matter, but carbon dating and archaeology and all that, and they do all these uh, excavations. They go backwards and trying to reconstruct uh, in terms of uh, periods or donating or making announcements announcements as to the period. What I'm trying to get back, let's get back to the issue. What I'm trying to say, see, we all live in a world and we all breathe, inhale, exhale. We've got oxygen in order to survive. We're not aware. I'm coughing now like goldfish. Goldfish is not aware that it's in the water. It's an animal, hypothetically. You can say, so we are the product, consciously or subconsciously. Where the intellectual argument goes, see who we are. See, if any Islam or Islamic person says it came in 500 years after so-called, the death of Christ. So that's history. Again, I'm not.
Yes, well, I'm not disputing any of this. Please come to your point. Because
all right.
You're saying
the point is that our laws emanate from Christian ethics / morality.
Which law now? The gay
any law,
So you're saying gay marriage is Christian? Are you saying gay marriage is Christian?
No, it's not. Of course, it's not. Of course, it's not.
So why are you saying all our laws are Christian?
It was dominated, at least I can argue, up to the split of the church, Eastern and Western Roman Empire, 1054. The other big thing was in the 15th century with Martin Luther. That's the shit.
No, we're talking about the Reformation.
No. We're talking about Christianity.
Please just sum up what you're trying to say in one sentence.
What I'm trying to say that the mindset of the people from the birth of Jesus Christ right up to, I'm talking about Europe now, up to Reformation, Martin Luther, was Christianity, our morality, our laws, common law, particularly,
but
dominated.
Christianity has changed.
Yeah, and so
Christianity has changed.
Well, that's post Protestantism. So what I'm trying to say, for 1,500 years, thereabouts, give a plus or minus 50 years, it has been Christianity in the society, and the hierarchical society has been stable. You know what people call it? Middle Ages or Dark Ages. It wasn't dark.
So what you're saying is you've been Christian all this time, and that's
What I'm saying is that when you talk about any morality, culture, the culture has been Catholic, at least up to the Reformation, the Second Schism. And we are a generation, whether we love it consciously or subconsciously, we are the children of Christianity. If you
we're all the
European.
children of Adam and Eve, if we're going to take the Bible.
No, don't go. No, let's not go there.
No, I mean, it's like, what is your point other than we're clinging to Christianity because
the point, for example, I'll give you an example. Pope John II, when EU, let you mention the EU, and you studied EU. European Union is supposed to be an economic.
Yeah, and they became a political union.
Exactly. And you know what? Just in the Charter of EU, Pope John Paul II begged acknowledgement to the faceless man, unelected people, personas you cannot identify in Strasbourg. Say, please put into the Constitution and donate the heritage of Europe being Christian, ethics and morality. And they rejected
Christendom ended in 1918, and nobody has written out its death certificate. And that's why you're all at sixes and sevens. You still think it's your religion, but it's not really. And deep down, you know this, but you want to turn back time. And I'm just saying,
no, I can't turn back time. I'm over that.
So you don't need to tell me that Europeans have been Christian since the year dot. You don't need to tell me that because
you are by virtue living in Europe, you're being Christianized. whether you are a Muslim or atheist or anything, by virtue of that.
Westernized
Well,
would be
well,
more
well,
accurate,
well,
since most
Western.
Westerners are not
No,
Christian
no,
these
no, no. You're
days.
mixing. No, what is Western? Where does a Western emanate from?
Liberal, it means liberal.
Christianity.
It means
No. Well,
liberal.
you're talking about David Hume, Spinoza, and all those philosophers. Yes, and these are the revolutionaries of the
Liberalism is
Martin
breaking
Luther.
down.
Martin
Yeah, so
Luther.
no, what we're saying really is that liberalism is breaking down, and we have to accept that liberalism has replaced Christianity a long time ago, except
But
that
you
it was
no,
never
but you
made official, and that's why you're having difficulty accepting it.
no. What I accept when you say has replaced Christianity. No, it's not. It's like a girl. A girl, if she had so many body counts, she can, 10, 50 people she slept with, she can forget or play dumb or keep secret. But you can't erase that history. That's my point. So you call it liberalism, communism, fascism, all these buzzwords which are political terms, okay? But all those people who claim to be whatever party or ideology they believe, that their genes, their culture is Christian.
Okay, you're right. Okay, is this really
Why?
what you
Doesn't
want to
matter whether I'm
concentrate?
white or black. That's it. Well, Catholic means
Okay,
international.
but okay, Jim, what is your point? Without
My
going
point,
into a
my
lecture.
my point. I'm not going to lecture. My point is, and again, I'm basing on the Bible. It's the end time. Again, I'm not trying to be a doomsayer or conspiratorial and all that. It has the secularism in the world, not atheism, secularism, and I always refer to one of my uh,
Please,
favorite
no
philosophers.
asides. Please, just in one sentence, just
Well,
say
secular,
what
all
is
right,
your point?
secular,
You're saying what the
secular.
world is going to end. Is that what you're
See,
saying?
all right. What I'm saying is, once you destroy God, and I'm talking Friedrich Nietzsche, beyond good and evil and good. What he basically says, man will kill God, and that has happened. I'm not denying
No, it
that. You're
hasn't
absolutely correct.
happened.
Yes, it has,
All
there's
he
no
meant was that belief
majority of
in the
people,
Trinity.
Western people. I'm talking Europe now.
Yes,
Majority of
but
Western Europe.
what Nietzsche
And
meant?
you know what he said.
Yes,
The important thing.
God is dead and we have killed him. I know he
Yeah,
said so. Yes.
and following that, yeah, you missed that. That's half the thing. Yes, kill God, and what has he said after that? If you read beyond
What shall we
evil and good,
do?
no, what he said is so important. That's even more important. Man has to invent God, belief system, and it's secular beliefs. That's my point. In other words, just look around you. Exactly, churches are empty. People do not believe if you're a Christian
Yes,
or
they don't
any
believe
religion.
in the
Well,
Trinity.
no. What's
No,
the
why
belief?
can't you accept that?
For example, what's the latest belief people believe they will kill you? 4 years, 5 years. If you didn't have if you
Feminism.
didn't, if you didn't have a mask, a COVID, so-called COVID
Yes.
19
All right.
hysteria,
Okay.
you were
So
ostracized.
people can be made to believe
Wait, just
to
stop
do
there.
stupid things.
What's the new God? What's the new God currently? Climate change. There you are. That's my point. There you are. Climate change. It's a
Okay,
religion.
we have had a religion made for us without being
It's
told.
man believing
Okay,
man.
is there a point to this other than you complaining? Is there a
Not
point?
complaining.
Are you,
My point is we're going down a hill. It's the decadence of Western civilization.
yeah, you don't need to
And
tell me
it's
that.
going down. And
Okay,
that is the reason. That's what I'm
do you
trying
have
to
a
say.
solution? Do you have a
There's no
solution?
solution. There's no
Okay,
solution.
okay,
I
fine.
can't
So
turn
I'm
the
saying I
clock
have a
back.
solution, and you reject it because you say, "Well, we're white, we're Christian, we reject, this brown thing
But because
called
that's
Islam."
why I
Is that
cling
really
to.
what you're saying?
I'm not here
Yeah,
to
I just
convert
want to make it
anyone.
easy.
I'm sorry.
I won't get offended if you
No,
agree.
go ahead.
I
No.
just want you to get to the point because I don't want these long-winded lectures telling me what I
Hmm.
already know, that Europeans have been Christian since the year dot.
But it's not being. You're missing my point. I'm not just
What?
making a
Sum it
blame.
up in one
My
sentence.
point.
Sum
My
it up
point.
in one
My point. The
sentence.
culture. to be a European is not only to be a white person. That's beside the point.
Oh,
It's
right. So
generate.
what
It's
is
ethnos.
the
Ethnos. Culture is very, very important, and
well,
the
culture
culture
comes from
for the
religion.
1500 years
Yes,
has
culture
come
comes from
in
religion. I
religion.
don't.
Wango. Yes.
Culture comes from religion, and the religion is what? You still think it's Christianity?
No, of course not. It's
Okay,
gone.
so it's liberalism, and liberalism
Well,
is no good. So what? So
It's
it needs
it's
to be
not no
replaced.
good. It emanates. Even this is the point. Whether you're a liberal or liberalism or whatever term, democracy, whatever thing,
Look, look,
it
look.
cannot escape. It cannot. You cannot escape your heritage. So if you're an ardent secularist, if you're a
I
communist
agree with
or
you
whatever,
that we
you
cannot
are still. You're still breathing the air, which I mentioned, like the goldfish, not being
Yes,
aware of the water, and it
yes. So,
cannot
so, so
survive
I
outside.
agree with you that anyone who lives in the West is being westernized and marinating in whatever the culture is, and the culture is bad. The culture is bad
Mm,
because. Okay, so we're
exactly.
agreed. So what are we going to do about it? Because I'm not
Well,
really interested in
well,
hearing you
all right,
moan
all right.
about.
So I'll tell you my perspective. So that's where I
Yeah,
emphasize
in
my
one sentence,
Catholicism.
please.
All right, one sentence. I am happy with my religion, not the structure. When I say Catholicism, that's where I'm pre-Vatican II, and this is where I get
But
my
you
my.
can't turn back time to pre-Vatican II.
But I'm not. I'm not ramming my Bible, my beliefs down the throat of anyone
Well,
listening.
do you have
Or
a
you.
Tridentine Mass to attend?
Yes, I do. I go about 40,
Okay,
40,
so as long as
40
you can,
days.
go
Mm.
to the right kind of church, you're happy. But what about the politics of your country? You don't give a damn about that.
Well, that's a different issue we
No,
were
it's the
talking
same.
about.
It's your religion and
Or,
politics are the
well,
same thing.
well, well,
Well, it
if you
is,
take
isn't it? Because
well, if you
the
take out
thing.
the religion, if you take out the religion and become politics and laws become secular, yes, I agree, and they totally contradict the morality of the tradition of Christian Western
Well,
European
what is
culture.
morality, Jim? Okay, I wouldn't
All right.
mind.
For
I'm
example,
happy to hear
sodomy.
a
Sodomy.
lecture
All right.
about morality from
Just listen.
you.
Or say sodomy. That's in the Bible. Homosexuality is forbidden. End of the story. It's an absolute in
So
Catholicism.
is
Um,
fornication, so is
so
adultery, so is
no,
incest.
no. Adultery is another one. All right. Just listen. All right. There you are. That's part
Okay,
of the
so
Ten
we need
Commandments.
to
So
raise our standards of sexual morality. Do
well,
we agree that we need to raise standards of sexual morality and that they're currently too low?
oh, what about euthanasia? That's a good
Okay,
thing.
well, so that there's so many laws you'd like to change now that
No
you change
changing,
all.
but laws doesn't make it right. See,
I don't say that. Uh,
yeah, yeah. Well,
So
I'm
so
not
so
trying
I'm
to
saying,
change anyone. I'm not. You're misunderstanding. I'm probably not expressing myself. What I'm trying to say, let's have 10 commandments. Let's take adultery, sodomy, euthanasia, suicide,
look,
etc., etc. So I'm talking about Catholic Church. It's pro-life. It's so
it's
simple. Keep
Jewish.
it simple.
The Ten
No,
Commandments is
it's not.
Jewish.
No,
How dare you? You
yeah,
actually you
yeah,
steal
but
from them, and then
excuse
you
me,
say, "Oh, it's
no,
nothing to do with the
no.
Jews." The Ten
Well,
Commandments.
now, no. Remember, there's a new covenant. The
But
Old
you're referring to
Testament,
the Old Covenant, aren't you?
Old Testament is Jewish, absolutely. Who's
So so
denying
so
that?
so, so what's well the Jews seem to know themselves better than you guys
Well,
because
the
do,
look,
do are there any codified principles in Christianity? I don't think so. You, a
yes, it
Christian
is.
is
Yes.
a
Yeah,
Christian will only say the Ten Commandments.
you haven't read the Church Fathers, have you? And
What did the
various
church father say?
councils. Well, this is the development post. I mean,
Oh, you mean when they
basically,
were making up the rules as they went along?
well,
But
it's not
there
making
is
up.
nothing in Christian scripture. What
See,
are
all
Christian
right, good. All
principles?
right, all right. Just hold on that. You said you studied law. Okay. laws or scripture. This is the modern Protestant things. What do Protestants say when they say read the Bible? And they know their Bible verse and chapter and blah blah blah. They can quote it back to front. Do you agree
Which
on that?
bit? You
All
can't
right,
expect
but
somebody
you
to read
can't
the whole
see.
Bible.
But listen, when you
What is your
quote.
point?
All right, the point is that you mentioned, is it in a scripture? Did you just say that?
Yeah, I said
All right,
Christian.
so
I said no. I said Christianity has no codified principles, and you wave that aside. So I asked you,
exactly, it's called magisterium.
what does that mean?
It's culture.
It's called.
It's culture.
Okay, so culture
1,500
is
years of
fluid.
tradition. Culture and tradition. And to give you an
Okay, so what is
example.
Christian cultural
So,
tradition?
now,
Is it just the
Catholic,
Tridentine
I
earth?
should know. What I'm trying to say is if any person reads any verse of Old or New Testament or newspaper, anything, the words have meaning. And in each person, they
What
conjure,
principles are there?
conjure up different things. So the beauty about Catholic Church is that's why you got 35,000 Protestant denominations in America and all over
Is that a
Europe.
good thing? Is schism a good thing?
No,
Because
no,
you're saying, right, the Protestants are schismatic
what
after they broke
what
from the
Protestants
Catholic
are
Church,
saying.
but then the
No,
Catholic
so you're
Church
misunderstanding, and that's the
submits to the
problem.
liberal
And that's
order.
the problem with Quranism or Quran. You cannot change Quran.
I
It's a
don't want to.
divine. But
I don't want to change.
but if you read any passage,
You still haven't read it
poetry,
yet, have you?
any passage, your interpretation of any passage could differ from me. I'll give you a classical
Yeah,
example,
no.
which
I'm not okay. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. So then it will be an argument about whose interpretation will be adopted.
no, but that's the
Never
beauty of the
mind
Catholic
about
Church.
that.
That's called
No, but you
magisterium
don't
and
interpret
culture and
anything. You
heritage.
don't
And
interpret
you come
anything.
to a consensus. And church fathers
Yeah,
are
exactly. So the Supreme Court will come to what?
defining this. And it's over centuries. It's not over, a
Yeah, but
couple of
you have
months.
no principles. You don't even have codified principles, do
Well, you don't
you?
have. Yes, you do. Yes, you
What are
do.
they?
Encyclicals. Read
What are
the
they? You
papal
can't name a single
encyclicals.
one. You can't
I'm
name a
sorry.
single one. You can't
Uh,
name a single one.
Humana Vitae, for example.
No, you can't name a single principle, can you?
Well, Humana Vitae. I'll give you
Name a
encyclical.
single principle.
Well, it's the life is divine. No one's got a right to
Yeah, thou
destroy
shalt not
life.
kill. Thou shalt
No,
not
not
kill.
well. Well, life is no. It's more than that.
No.
Again,
You have no
no.
principle.
It's
Why
not
don't you
killing
just
is an
admit it?
action of another
The only
person.
principle
No,
you, as a
life. No,
Christian, has
you're
is to
not
worship.
listening. Life is divine. It's not man and woman. It's
That's meaningless. It's not. You don't even
it's
know what a
man, woman,
principle is.
and Jesus Christ.
You don't even
So
know what a
life is.
principle is.
I said life is. You're not
No,
listening.
no, no, no.
Life is divine.
No. A
You came with
principle
a.
is do or don't. I always do this. I never do that. You don't even know what codified principles are. I mean, we sort of we know
Well,
that.
codify. Give me a con. All right. Give me a cod. You give me a codified
That was the
principle.
10 Commandments,
Oh, that's
but they're
Old
not
Testament.
yours. They're
No,
not
of course they
yours.
are. No,
They're not
I.
yours.
But you got to understand. For example, in the Catholic Church, we're talking about divinity of the preciousness of life, but there's also a doctrine of what?
You're just
Just
waffling,
war.
Jim. Jim,
Just
you're just waffling. You're just waffling.
all
And
right.
you don't even understand what codified principles are. I mean, codified principles are basically 10 commandments, 7 Noahide laws, 5 pillars of Islam, 13 principles of Judaism. You must always do
But
X. You must
they're
never do Y.
open. They're open to what?
You don't even
Interpretation.
believe in them. Okay, so if you're going to be a
Interpretation.
proper Christian, you have to believe that Jesus is the co-equal of the Abrahamic God. You don't believe in that. You don't
Of course
really.
not. But he was.
Of course
Oh
not.
my. Of course not. Yes. But look,
Sorry,
Jesus was
are
a
you
Jew.
saying you
Jesus was a Jew, and the chosen people have crucified him, killed him, and they've rejected their Messiah.
Yeah, because he
End of
was a
the story.
blasphemer. According to the story, he blasphemed against God by claiming that he was a son of God.
Well, read Matthew chapter 27. There
Yeah,
you go.
who was Matthew?
Well, that's New Testament. One of
Yes,
the
so
apostles.
basically, that while the Jews and the Muslims can claim that their scripture comes from God, Christians can only say, well, Matthew, some guy called Matthew said this, some guy called Mark said
So,
that, some guy called John, and some guy called Luke. We know nothing about them.
oh, now you no. Read the critical sources of the Romans. There's
Yeah, the
plenty of
Romans made it up.
no. Oh, so they did. So, they're gonna say, look, 1,000 years from now, we're gonna make up, apostles.
You've been doing it.
So
You've been
what you're saying?
making up the
So are
biggest
you
thing.
arguing? Are you arguing? Are you arguing that the apostles of Jesus Christ, historical, not divine? I'm not arguing divinity. It never existed.
I don't know. I mean, if you ask the Jews,
Oh,
they say
I'm not
we
asking.
have
I'm asking Claire. I'm
we have
asking
no record of
Claire.
this man.
So I'm asking Claire.
I would know. I wasn't there. No,
Oh, so
I'm not going to argue about the historicity.
oh
I'm saying it's idolatry to worship a man, is it not?
no, we're not
And you're saying I
worshipping a
don't know.
man. No, I'm
So you
asking you
don't
about
know.
not
So you've
done
never been
of this.
confirmed. You don't worship the Trinity. Do you worship the
I'm asking
Trinity?
you. I'm asking you. It's not worshipping the Trinity. That's putting the
Well, then, if you
Christians
don't
under
worship the
wrong.
Trinity, you're not Christian.
But it's not. No, that's not Christianity.
What is Christianity?
So you're saying Christianity, the blessed Trinity is three persons in one. God is three persons: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Okay, so it's a theological argument, and
Dogma. It's
you got to
dogma.
well, you got to read St. Augustine, and there was continuous. This is the whole 15th centuries of
Or what did
refining and
Augustine say about the
defining.
Trinity?
Now, I'm asking you, as a coronist, did historical Jesus and apostles live?
I wouldn't know.
And
I'm not
you
interested in
say
the
you were.
stories.
Well, I'm asking you, do you believe? Is it all a figment of my imagination, or is it a historical fact? Simple
How would you
question.
know? How would you know you weren't
Well,
born?
for
So
example,
all you can
all
argue
right.
about.
So, did George Washington exist? How did you know that George Washington,
Well, nobody
first
disputes his
president?
existence.
Well, oh, so on what basis? All right.
So truth
Is
is
there a
what is
video?
not in
Is
dispute.
there a video? Is there a what document? Are we basing
No.
it on a
Truth is what
document?
is not in dispute. So
No,
no
what?
one
No,
say
but no. That's easily that
no,
you're not going to pull
we're
that
not.
one over. What's the evidence that George Washington or Disraeli or any or Lord Wilberforce
Well, they
existed?
probably left some trace of their existence, some writing or somebody talking about them. So that's fine.
Exactly. It's called
So,
primary
so
sources,
I'm not
historical
actually
sources.
denying the historicity of Jesus anyway, but I'm saying as lawyers, we can perhaps
No, but you
we can discuss the
said about
definition.
the
We can
apostles,
discuss the
as
definition of
you said
idolatry, and
about
you're not
apostles,
interested in that,
you
are
said
you?
about apostles, there's no evidence, and I beg to differ.
No, it's not even what they said. So I'm saying the problem with Christianity
No,
is
the exist.
idolatry.
No, you're not going to go around there. My question to you: did Jesus Christ exist? Yes or no? To your understanding, your
It
reading,
doesn't matter
limited
if he
reading. Well,
exists
it
or not.
does matter. If you want to argue theology or
No.
Christianity,
The only issue of theology I want to argue about is the definition of idolatry. So is it idolatry to worship a man? Jews and Muslims would say yes, and Christians would deny it. Knowing them, they would deny it, wouldn't they? As Mandy Rice Davis would ask. Of course, they deny that they're idolaters who worship an executed blasphemer, but that's the story. The Christian narrative of Jesus is that he died after being crucified for blasphemy. That is the Christian narrative. So I'm asking you, as a Christian, is it idolatry to worship a man?
We're not worshipping a man. He was divine. He was God. He
Okay,
came
so
into
how
a
do you
physical.
know
He
that?
came into a. Look, he was a man. He suffered, and he died as a man. Yet
It
he was
is
divine.
idolatry
Yet
to worship a man. Of course,
3
you may
days
suffer.
later, he rose from the dead. And guess what? History, approximately.
Is
You know how many people
Lazarus,
saw?
is
You know how many?
Lazarus
You know how
gone?
many? You know how many people saw Jesus Christ after the 3 days after the resurrection? Do you read
Those are just
history?
stories. But anyway,
No,
in
they're
terms
not
of
so. Just
resurrection,
see. Now I go back to George Washington. They're just stories written about George
nobody
Washington.
denies the existence of George
Well, now I'm
Washington.
talking post-death. Said there was a man.
So you can't
Not.
prove.
I'm not saying he's a god. You don't have to accept that. I
Well,
understand.
you have to say, well,
So there
as
was
a
a man.
Catholic, you're
Can we agree
obliged to
there
believe
was a
that Jesus is
historical
God.
man called Jesus Christ from
No, no,
Nazareth?
I'm just saying, look, I don't even want to
So,
go round and round in circles,
no,
but
it's not. It's not
you
circle.
do see a problem with
But you
the
got to.
idolatry point, don't you? Because Jews would say Christians are idolaters. Muslims who
I don't.
don't like Jews would agree with Jews
I don't
even
care
though
what
they hate
Jews
Jews.
say. Idolatrous. They rejected him. They killed him. Of course,
But
they're going to say
yeah,
he
because he
blasphemed.
said he
What
was.
what proof
Did
have
he
you
say
got
he was
that?
God?
Yes, he
Okay,
proclaimed he was
so there we
chosen,
go.
and they
That's the reason
rejected
why
him.
the Jews
They,
executed
the
him, and
Jews,
rightly
rejected him. And
according to their own law.
there are sources. I mean, including in, including Jewish sources, contemporaneous, and that's primary sources. I'm not a biblical scholar, and I'm not going to venture
You don't have to be a biblical
into
scholar.
that.
We
You
just
know,
have to talk about idolatry. Is
well,
idolatry the
idolatry.
worship of
When
anything
you
that
say
is a
idolatry is
number?
a false god, he claimed to be God. Now, my
Okay,
argument
so
is,
you choose to believe it, but it is
yeah.
also a Christian saying, "By their fruits shall ye know them." So, is globo homo the fruits of Christianity?
Say, I don't follow. I'm sorry. What is
Are the
this?
policies of Sodom and Gomorrah the rotten fruits of Christianity?
No, that's pre. Catholicism, Christianity is the New Testament onwards. Okay,
But
we
we
accept
know
the.
that Catholic priests are celibate and they're known for pederasty and
What's this?
homosexuality.
Oh, yeah. So what? I don't believe in the man. I believe in the spirituality.
Why don't you
Who-
just believe
Who's
in
who said I believe in the priest? He could be a pederast. He could be a womanizer. He can be a murderer. That's
but
his
priests,
belief.
Catholic
So,
priests
well,
are
how
in a
can you
position to give
conflate? You're
absolution.
conflating my religion with a man, fallible man. How dare you?
Well, Jesus was a man, right?
No, yes, but he claimed to be God, and he has risen from the dead.
But you don't really believe that. It's just a,
Why not? Do you realize how many? Again, I'm arguing history. How many people saw Jesus after he was crucified?
we
And he
don't
rose
know.
3 days. Well, yes, we do. Approximately 500 witnesses. Not only the
Well, who
apostles.
said that? Who said
Well,
that?
well, well. I can give you various sources. Again, I'm not a biblical
Yeah,
scholar.
isn't you okay? It doesn't matter
Uh,
because the key point is where you see you can't even put yourself in a position of imagining God existing to not be happy about you thinking that he is Jesus. You can't even Put yourself in that position of thinking, well, God might exist. The one who forbade idolatry and blasphemy in his commandments, he might exist, and he might not be best pleased with Christians who
Or
worship
can,
a
can I
man
can I
executed
ask you?
for
Yeah.
blasphemy. You refuse to even entertain the idea that
Of what? Of
of
what?
God
Well, it's
who
idolatry.
forbade
When you talk about
idolatry and
idolatry,
blasphemy
you're
not be
talking
best.
about
You're
false
talking over me because
gods.
you don't want to.
Yeah.
But you don't want to
Oh,
hear it, do
sorry.
you?
Go ahead. I
So,
apologize.
so
Go
I'm
ahead.
just saying, if God forbade idolatry and blasphemy, can He be pleased with Christians who make a point of worshipping a man that
No, no,
Christians
no.
themselves
We're not
claim
worshiping a man
to
for
have been
crying out
executed
loud.
for
I mean,
blasphemy?
where did you get that? It's not the physical person we are worshiping. He's a
What isn't?
divinity who he came down as a man, identified. This is the blessed Trinity, the mystery of
When did
Catholicism,
the
of
Trinity come about?
Christianity.
When did Trinity happen? It wasn't.
What
Nobody. The
from
New Testament
Jesus'
doesn't even mention
preaching?
the Trinity.
Yes, it does. Well, yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't mention the
Various
Trinity at all.
passages. Yes, it
No,
does. Yes, it
no,
does.
it's no.
Various
You might have mentioned
again,
the Father, the
again,
Son,
the
and the Holy
Father and
Spirit.
the Son, and
Yeah,
it's
but
a
that they
mystery.
didn't
And I
specifically mention the
see,
Trinity.
see, it's well, he does. Well, not everything you say and do has to be in writing. This is the
Yes, of
Protestant
course it
argument.
has to be.
So no, it
If
doesn't.
God
It
exists,
doesn't.
He's going to
It
send a
doesn't.
clear
No.
message from Himself. He's omnipotent, isn't He? So He can damn well
Yes,
send messages to
but
humanity
not
and say,
every.
this is a directly revealed word of God in the Torah or the Quran. But what do Christians have? The New Testament, the word of Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul, James, etc.
Yeah.
So, well, it's not as high status as the supreme creator of the universe, is it?
It's. I. I'm not. I'm not going to argue anymore, or put it forward at things. What the thing which you got to understand about Christianity. Um.
Is that it doesn't make sense? Why don't you
Well,
care
see,
that it doesn't make
well,
sense?
you say idolatry, but if he claims to be God, and he's if it's let's talk about the apostles. Do you realize how the 12 apostles, except one who killed himself or hung himself, Judas, you know how they ended up? They were all crucified. Now I ask you, as not as a direct question, or trying to be objective, if he was full of shit and talked bullshit, would you, all of them, around Mediterranean, Greece, today's Turkey, Egypt, and Middle East, etc. They were all killed because they believed when they saw him. Now, if that religion by itself, this is history, I'm arguing.
People are being killed all the
So,
time for their
yeah,
wrong
but they
beliefs.
died. They could have reneged Christianity.
No, but Constantine decided to adopt Christianity, and that's why
No,
it came to
that's
be adopted.
third century. You're talking third century,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, but without
You're talking.
Constantine,
You're talk, now you're jumping.
Roman
We are talking
Catholicism would
about
not have happened.
people who have known him, the 12 apostles. They went out, they preached, and they said to the Goyim, to the Gentiles. For example, there was a big
No, this was
argument.
Paul.
No, there's a lot of them. No, all the apostles went out and preached, and all of them were killed. All of them. All of them were killed. 11, not 12. All right. All of them were killed because they saw Jesus, and they believed, and they died because they believed in that. They could have converted. They didn't even have to go, oh, bugger it. I'll get another trade. I'll become a fisherman again, or whatever.
Well,
Do you understand? So that fact, again, not about them. You've got to read contemporaneous primary sources. This is what history is about, and it's all written in mainly Greek and Aramaic, and then
All
Latin
right, so
later on.
they were martyred, fine, but that doesn't make Jesus God.
Well, I'm not arguing that, but it's certainly, you wouldn't die. I wouldn't die for some, some magician who claims to be God. I say, bugger him.
Well, I mean, we know what
You
Muslim
know what I'm
terrorists
saying?
do, right?
They're,
They blow themselves up because of the promise
but
of
they're the
72
extremists.
virgins.
They're the extremists. Now, going back, you mentioned Muslims, and you've got nearly 600 years later, and as I understand, I have not read Quran. Again, I'm not professing. My
You
understanding
do
is,
own it.
yeah, I do have a Quran, but I've got no time to read it. Or a lot of books I've got, but anyway, I can't read all the damn things. Uh, what I'm trying to say, uh, Muhammad recognizes, or does apparently, allegedly, what I hear, I could stand to be corrected, that Jesus existed. So you got in Islam, there was a man called Jesus, and he was a prophet. They denied that he was divine. He was not God, of course. Allah is God. But in
Yes,
Quran,
it's the
but in
Abrahamic
Quran,
God.
yeah, but in
So
Quran,
Jews
so
and Muslims deny divine prophets. That's what they have in common, even
mm,
though, okay,
mm,
so the reason for denying divine prophets is so nobody's going to come along and say, "Hey, I'm God. You better listen to me, mate."
mm, yes,
And Christians have gone and done it. They've been doing it for 1700 years, and they won't stop, and they won't repent. But anyway, we know from what is happening to their civilization that all is not well. In fact,
of course, I
Christendom
agree.
ended in 1918.
Mm.
So, don't
Well,
you
at the
think
end
it
of
would be
First World War,
beneficial to understand your own
this is
history?
very interesting you mentioned that. I tend to agree with you. 1918. What made you say that year Christianity ended? And this is very interesting.
Well, if Christianity had any purpose at all, if you think of it, the political purposes of
Mm,
Christianity, it would be to defend the divine right of kings. And Christendom
absolutely.
was
I
said,
agree with you. Absolutely. You're spot on as far as I am. Go ahead,
oh,
please.
great. Well, it's nice to be in agreement, Jim. But I'm just saying, if Christianity failed these absolute monarchs, the monarchs of Austria, the monarchs of Germany, the monarch of Russia, and they were all great powers, what's it going to do to us commoners? To you
No,
commoners are not
no,
Christian.
no. Well, you got to put it in a historical perspective. It's not
Well,
Christianity.
that's what I've just done.
Christianity has not failed anyone. No
It
system,
failed to
whether it
prevent the decline and fall of Rome.
no, well,
Edward
they're
Gibbon,
not in power. They're
Gibbon said
spiritual power.
Christianity
But
caused
no,
the
no,
fall of the
no,
Roman Empire.
no, no, no,
Do you
no,
deny
no.
that
Well,
Edward
well,
Gibbon said that?
but just you got to understand. You got to again history. What's so important about Martin Luther? What's so significant about him? What did he say? Basically, come on.
He was the catalyst for the
What did he
Reformation.
say?
He
What
said,
did Martin Luther say?
well,
Rebelled
he had
against the Pope
95 theses. I can't remember
yeah,
all of them.
yeah. No, forget about Not any. Put him on a church.
Well, I mean, the
Wittenberg.
story is that
Yes,
he
yes,
thought
yes,
it was corrupt of
yes,
the
yes,
Catholic
yes,
Church to
yes.
monetize
So
the
so
fear of hell of its
so I'll
its
tell you the
believers.
significance of Martin Luther is as follows. What he says: forget about the clergy, forget about the Pope, forget about the physical structure, the human structure of the or hierarchy of the Catholic Church. All you need is the Bible. You got a hot red phone to Jesus Christ, and you are saved if you follow, and you are born again. In other words, he says, cut the bullshit out, cut the
Yeah,
magisterium,
the
cut the
intercessory
culture, and
Catholic
that's what.
Church.
And that's what and this is the problem of Protestantism. And the problem is once any person takes the Bible or any text and you start reading it, you interpret the text according to your beliefs, education, etc., etc. Please, on that point, there's a good case in London. I'm going back to my criminal law lecture. There's a guy called Bradbury or whatever, Berkeley. I think you Google it, you can get it. In 1950 in London, there were two robbers, and one had two robbers. One had a gun. They were robbing a factory in London, dreary London, all smog, and they were surrounded
Let
by
him have
bodies.
it.
Exactly, and so that's the crux of it. How that's
Yes, and it
verdict.
was Nietzsche who said, okay, for people who don't know,
You know what I'm saying?
let me quickly explain
Yeah,
it to
yeah.
people.
But
It
that's
was
my
easy.
point. My point being
You
is,
know, I'm just trying to make it clear for
yeah,
anybody who might be
yeah,
listening
yeah,
about this um, case was that that there were these
I think it's Barclay or
joint.
whatever, Buckley or something like that.
Yes. But anyway, it
Anyway,
was a joint enterprise case when
so
a
and
copper ended up being killed by
mm,
somebody who shot.
one of the robbers had a gun. There was two robbers, one gun. And so they were on top of the roof. There's all these, chimneys around there in the factory. And the other guy, Berkeley, whatever his name is, says to his mate, "Let him have it." And his argument or defense in court was, "Let him have it." I meant let him have the gun rather than shoot him. So the other guy shot him, but yet the guy who called out, "Let him have it," got hung. And he got hung in about 3-4 months. It was unprecedented. And it's an
Bentley.
interesting case. In
Derek
1950,
Bentley. It's a Derek Bentley
Bentley,
case, in case anyone's
yeah,
interested.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yes.
that's right.
So as Nietzsche
My
said,
point being, going
interpretation is a function of power.
and no, every person, if you haven't got a hierarchy beauty about Catholic Church, and as opposed to Protestantism, anything,
No,
it's got
no.
culture and magisterium. So when you interpret, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can read and interpret, and that's why you have multi
yes, but it's not any
denomination.
Tom, Dick, and
And the
Harry
beauty,
who interprets it, is
but
it?
yes, they
It's not
do.
any Tom, Dick,
Preacher,
and Harry
every
that
preacher,
interprets it. You know
every
it's not
Protestant
true. You
preacher.
know it's
Why?
not
Or
true.
why do you have 35,000 plus Protestant denominations? Please explain. I'll shut up.
Right. Before you derail the conversation, I want to finish my point about
Go ahead.
Derek Bentley. So basically, it was the interpretation of the court that
Not the court. What he
condemned
said.
Bentley, right? Because they decided that he meant kill the copper
Yes.
by
Yeah.
letting him
Exactly. Yeah.
have it with both
Yeah.
barrels or whatever. And the defense was no, I meant let the copper have the gun. But anyway, this misunderstanding led to the death of the copper and eventually to the death of Bentley.
Misunderstanding.
So, yes, and the court decided that they weren't going to, have this alleged this interpretation of the defense, that they're not going to accept it, and they decided, well, we're not going to let him get away with it. And Nietzsche also said that interpretation is not a function of truth, but that of power. So obviously, only powerful people get to interpret scripture. They're not going to let some illiterate peasant interpret the scripture, are they?
Exactly,
They're going to let the Archbishop of Canterbury or the Pope and all these people have to go through
not
their
in a
paces.
Catholic Church. You don't understand the Catholic Church. So
Well, you have to be a cardinal before you're eligible.
No. Oh God.
Well,
That's
we've
why.
just had
That's why
Pope
culture
recently.
and history and heritage and tradition is so important. That's why Catholic. That's why Catholic Church is 1.4 billion. 1.4 billion big, and it's not in unison. There's going to be a schism. I know that.
No. Can we?
That's another story for another day. But the beauty about the Bible and religion, you've got to have a unison understanding and interpretation of the scripture.
We need to understand who gets to be Pope. We need to understand who gets to be Pope. And I think it is particularly relevant since we've just had a new Pope. And you know about the papal conclave. So in order to be eligible to become Pope, you have to be a cardinal, and a cardinal below a certain age. So
80,
not anybody Exactly. So not anybody who, even if they are a cardinal, gets to be pope. And also, well, we already know it could be rigged. It could be a CIA appointment. Now that the Pope is American. So let us not pretend that the sola scriptura thing means any Protestant can pick up the Bible and say this is how I interpret it. Of course not. It will be somebody senior, somebody who's in cahoots with the government saying it means this, it
No,
means that. So
no,
so 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 okay. So you're saying there's something the problem with Protestantism, but actually
exactly,
Protestantism
exactly.
Protestantism was inevitable. And I'll tell you why.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
So
I
you agree
agree.
with
Yeah,
me that Protestantism was inevitable. Do you agree with me, or are
absolutely.
Catholics still crying over,
No,
you know?
no, no. If you follow, this is the another proof that the Bible in this, apocalypse and all at the end of the world will come. Jesus will have to come back again, whether tomorrow, next year, or 1 million years from now.
No,
That's
no, no,
that's the
no,
mystery. Yes,
no.
that's
I think you've just
in the
given up. So
Bible.
you want the world to end, and that's fine.
No,
You're going
no,
into
no, no,
eschatology.
don't put eschatology or words in my mouth. This is written in the Bible. Now, if you're any
Oh,
form of Christian, what I'm is saying basically, and the beauty or saying about the Catholic Church, it's got more credibility. I'm not saying even if it's right, you don't have to follow or believe what I'm saying. Okay,
no,
I'm
no.
not
I'm
here to
trying to tell
convert
you.
it.
I'm trying to tell you,
It's got
Jim.
more. It's got more historical. It's got more credibility in terms of Christianity. That's all I'm saying. No
What,
more, no less.
what credibility? You're saying we've been around for around longer than so we're better,
Yes.
but
Well, that's a bloody good argument, I reckon.
but you've also admitted that Christendom ended in 1918, and Christianity also has a problem with God if he exists because he's not going to be happy with
No,
Christians
we haven't
for
got.
their
No, we haven't
idolatry
got
and
a
their
problem.
blasphemy.
Catholics, we haven't got a problem with God existing. He's
Well, you lost
transcendental.
the wars of the Reformation, so
So what? That
well,
doesn't deny. If you lost the war, if you're killed,
by
doesn't
their
mean.
fruits shall ye judge them. So
So
Catholics lost the war.
what you're saying, uh, winner. See, this is a temporal argument. Might is right. You're talking about physical world. We're talking about
Well,
transcendental.
it's both,
God,
isn't it?
God is
Because
God is transcendental.
well, God moves in mysterious ways. So
I agree with that.
you could ask me, well, if God had a problem with Christians, why did he allow them three global empires? You could have asked me that, but since you didn't, I'm asking this question on your behalf.
All right, what's
So
the
why do you
question?
think he might have done that? Why do you think God, if he is living and active, why would he allow Christians three global empires? And the answer is
What
that when Christianity
what
finally,
global empires? You're talking about religion. We're not talking about what? We're not talking about dollars and cents, temporal kings, queens,
I'm surprised you
etc.
do not accept, being a historian, you do not acknowledge that Christianity was spread by Western imperialism. Surely you know that.
No, not Western Imperial. You're conflating politics with religion. Of
They're the
course, they
same
were
thing.
missionary. No, no, no,
I
no,
just don't
no,
believe that you're denying
no, no, no.
this crucial
Just
aspect of
because,
your history. Do you
just
deny
because,
that there is
just
such a thing as
because
Western imperialism?
it is a political thing. Yes, it is. Western imperialism happened. It happened under Britain for 200 years. Britain ruled the waves.
And
Remember the British
before that,
Empire?
it was
Eh,
another global empire, the
It was
Spanish Empire.
Spanish and Portuguese, yes, and the Dutch,
There you
yes,
go.
yeah.
Right.
But
So and they
it
were all
wasn't
Christian.
a Catholic. It
Yeah,
was not in
but
the
they were
name of
Christians.
Catholicism. The missionaries spread the word of God because they believed the only way to heaven is through Jesus Christ. I am the way to salvation. They didn't. I mean, how do you explain like Mother Teresa not being Indian and touching the lepers. Even Indians in Calcutta didn't touch. Being from Albania, whatever she was, and doing those things. Now, are you going to correlate or conflate being European? She's an imperial product, white woman, joined the orders, and then she's spreading capitalism and Western imperialism to poor, downtrodden India.
Yes.
I mean, you can.
Yes, of course.
All right.
Of course. I mean, India has been
She's
conquered
not spread. She's
by
not
Muslims
spread.
and conquered by the
the
British,
problem.
who were Christian.
You know what I find. Find problem with Islam, and again, I'm not thing. The problem with Islam, as I see it, is as follows: it is our way or no way. In other words, you either submit, and that's what Islam basically
Well,
means.
actually, Islam accommodates
That's what
even.
It's submit. If you do not submit, then you become a second-class citizen.
Well,
and then you got to pay extra tax.
Well, everybody can become second class. It's not mainstream.
No. I'm talking about now religion. I'm talking about Islam.
Well, obviously, there will be second-class citizens in any society.
We are 2025.
So
there are beheadings. There are beheadings in Afghanistan, in Iran, in Iraq, in Saudi Arabia. As we speak.
There's a death penalty.
Oh, but public
do you not
execution.
believe in a death penalty?
No, I don't actually. But anyway, that's another story. Yes.
Well, the
beautiful thing about Catholicism is it's consistent.
No, it's not consistent.
Yes, it is.
How can you say it's consistent? It's changed.
No sodomy, no euthanasia, no abortion, no death penalty. Life,
yeah, and
the life is not. It's conceived by. It's a theological argument.
It's a cultural affiliation. Why not just acknowledge it?
Yes, I acknowledge. Majority of Western Europe is non-Christian, non-Catholic.
Okay.
No, exactly.
Is that a problem?
Of course, it's a problem. I'm not here to solve it.
Okay, so let's solve the problem.
Why should you or I solve the problem? We can only discuss the current political.
Well, we can discuss
situation or cultural.
We can discuss the solution in theory.
Well, there's no solution as I see it.
Why
I think
not?
it's. Well, how can you solve it? All right, you tell me. What are you trying to say?
You change the system. If the political system is wrong, you change it.
So what you're saying, bring Islam in. Is that what you're arguing? Or bring Judaism?
No. I mean, Judaism is too hard for the Jews. They can't even, follow their own rules.
So what's your proposition? All right, forget about Christianity. Forget about Western world.
Okay,
it's rotten. It's decadent.
You're too busy to read anything that.
I'm asking you, what is your solution?
Do you know I promote secular Quranism? Yes, you do, because that was your first question. So obviously,
I still don't understand it fully, but go ahead. So what you're saying is
secular Quranism is my solution, and it's like you can like it or not like it, but your next question ought to be:
Is there a God? Is there a belief in secular Quranism? Do you believe in God?
I don't have to. So I'm saying, as an agnostic, I can entertain the idea that God exists, and I can entertain the idea that God doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I can speak to both sides of the argument. So to atheists, I will say, well, even if you don't believe in God, you do accept that laws are necessary to control criminal behavior, to discourage to discourage criminal behavior, laws against, murder, theft, etc. So and the atheists would have to agree, right? They would have to agree that even if God doesn't exist, they would like to live in a society where, fraud and theft and murder and rape would be criminalized. They would agree. And the next thing I would ask them is, who guards the guardians? So you can have all these, this perfect constitution of, what happens to bad people and how good people are rewarded, etc. What happens when the incompetent and corrupt control the levers of state. They're in the judiciary and the police and the army and the media and the liars who believe in nonsense, and they control all these arms of the state. And the only thing you can do against corrupt and incompetent people who are already in charge, pissing and shitting on us, is to invoke the power above humanity, which is the hypothetical supreme authority, which it is actually easy to invoke because so many people still claim to be believing Jews, believing Christians, and believing Muslims. So then you ask, Jews, do you think you could be cursed by God? Because actually, there's the book of Deuteronomy does list quite horrible curses for disobedience. So we already know that disobedient Jews are cursed by God. And as for non-Jews, there is also a verse in the Quran that curses hypocrites and those who associate partners with God. So we already know that God, if he exists, is capable of cursing Jews and Gentiles who disobey him. So the next stage is to ask these Jews, Christians, and Muslims if they think they might have done anything wrong to annoy God, if he exists. What do you think is the answer? Are they going to run away and pretend not to hear? I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to pretend they didn't hear and leave the room.
On that point, how do Jews explain the Talmud?
And what was there to explain? It's a commentary on the Torah.
Well, some of the passages there, it's actually a very derogatory of Christianity.
Well, but what about the New Testament calling them synagogue of Satan and all kinds of things? I mean, the Quran is quite rude about Jews.
Well, how can you reconcile that? You're talking some sort of a universal brotherhood of religions.
No,
Abrahamic religions to get together. I mean, I don't know.
I am saying, Jim.
Go ahead. Yeah, go on.
That Islam is an imperial religion because what it does is it's always talking about the non-Muslims. It's the Jews, it's the Christians, it's the idolaters. We have we have to deal with them. We have to accommodate them, and all sorts of things. So that Islam is imperial because it talks about how to exact the jizya from conquered non-Muslim countries, etc. It's quite unashamed about that. It even has principles on warfare. And how to treat your prisoners of war, etc., etc. So it's already there. It's like, how are we going to deal with all these non-Muslims, and how are we going to accommodate them? And I'm saying it's already there. Even the Geneva Convention comes from the Quran. So I'm saying, as a lawyer to lawyer, if you would read the Quran and maybe appreciate it for the You may not believe in Allah, but basically, if God exists, he's capable of being a very good legal draftsman. What do you think?
Well,
if God is omnipotent, he would be, the supreme legal draftsman. So with for every rule, there's an exception. So even the verses that say punish whoever, but and an exception will be given if he says sorry, if he's genuinely remorseful, blah blah blah. So the option of mercy already exists. It's sad that you refuse to read it because you're so convinced that Catholicism.
It's not. No, I haven't got time. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I just simply haven't got time. But the problem I'm having with Islam, and this is one thing which I simply cannot recognize or cannot reconcile, if that's a better word, is that being a Muslim, there's no separation of state or political arm or military arm and religion.
Well, yes,
let me finish.
I'm saying it's a good
one
thing.
and the same. So
yes, it's a good thing, and I will explain why. I'm very happy to explain why.
and this is well, rightly or wrongly, where our Western society just gone astray. They've emanated from Christianity, and now they are frowning and 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 ignoring it, and becoming very, very not secular, even worse than secular. They're being very
Satanic.
antagonistic. Yes, satanic, I would say. No, but that's a good word to use. And there would be a good argument there, examples
Right.
to use.
So may I address your issue of separation of church and state? Would you agree with me, Jim, that
Yeah.
if your country were a Nazi country, for example, hypothetically, you would expect the law of the land to be supporting Nazism. And if you were a communist country, you would expect the law of the land to support communism,
Mm,
or liberalism or nationalism.
whatever. Yeah.
It's like this is the logic that Islam already accepts. It's like, well, if you believe in God and you want to please Him and obey Him, then you have to obey His laws. What's the problem? If you
Well,
if you
well,
indeed accept that he exists, but obviously if you don't, well, but you can still be accommodated if you don't obey, or if you don't break all these laws. And this is the foundation of the First Amendment, right? Because the First Amendment, the American Revolution, was the first time that Europeans broke out of the absolutism of Christianity, because
yep,
Christianity was used to
absolutely.
defend the divine right of kings, right? And I don't know if you know this, but any subject of any Christian monarch in Europe had to follow the religion of his king. No exceptions. So I even know this because I know um, that in certain Lutheran countries, it's like you're born, you register, you go to register the birth of your child, and it's assumed that it's a Lutheran because you live in a Lutheran kingdom. Do you see? This
Mm,
was the rule before the founding, um, before the American Revolution. And the founding fathers, I mean, we might think it was about tea and taxes and, no representation without taxation. But basically, the founding fathers, who were educated and enlightened men, simply refused to parrot the nonsense that they thought was nonsense. So quite a few of the founding fathers would be considered heretics if they were in the old world, but in the new world they could get away with it
well,
because
they were all
imperial.
most of the founding fathers were Freemasons, of course.
Yes, yes. So masonry allowed these men to organize their revolution, right? And the whole thing about masonry is that technically all the Abrahamic religions can join. The as long as you believe in
No,
a higher
oh
power, you
no.
can join. But
Mm. Yeah. On that point, I can actually uh, give you a personal example. You've got to be invited. You've got to be a male. Not only that, and one of the prerequisites or requirements joining Freemasonry, you've got to have two people who can recommend you to join. And the only thing you've got to believe, or their credo, is not God. They call it higher power.
mhm.
And higher power could be Satan as much as God. And I use the old saying, you can't sit on two chairs, or you can't serve Caesar and Christ or God at the same time. Thus, I refuse to join.
Well,
And I
it's
said, thanks,
basically Jews and
thanks,
Christians
thanks,
fraternizing.
thanks, but no thanks, if you get my drift. So,
But I know that Catholics would be excommunicated if they joined. So I
well,
would
no,
expect
well, this
your.
is the problem with the Catholic Second Vatican Council, where actually this P1 or P2, I should say, there's a lot of infiltration by the Freemasons within the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. I
Well,
can
but I think you may know that members of the royal family, I think Prince Michael.
Michael is the head of the
Yeah,
Freemasons in
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
fully
in a
aware.
way, okay, we don't know. I mean, my theory with the Freemasons is that the secret mission of the Freemasons is to wait until it is safe for Jews and Muslims to tell Christians that they are idolaters and blasphemers, and urge them to cease and desist from disobeying God with their idolatry and blasphemy, and then everything will just correct itself. And obviously, the best thing that could happen is for King Charles, King Charles to exercise his First Amendment rights. I mean, I know he doesn't live in America, but basically, Jefferson said that freedom of belief is an unalienable human right. Freedom of belief and freedom of expression, and the main side.
The only country in the world which does not have a constitution is England.
And Sweden and any monarchy, because they can pretend to have bits of paper here and there, but there is this idea of the royal prerogative that must exist even in a constitutional monarchy. Even the Americans talk about a kind of prerogative in a book called, I can't remember the name now, but it'll come back to me. But basically, the whole point of being a king is that you have the right, you are above the law. I mean, traditionally, when monarchs were absolute monarchs, they would go up and down their kingdom, settling the disputes of their subjects, and they would go on a circuit, and we know what a circuit means because the High Court judges going on a circuit, to give justice to and not be staying there, because if they stayed there too long, they would be having local interests and be able to be bribed and threatened by the locals there. So the idea is for impartiality. Well, the point about being a monarch is that, of course, you are above the law because you give the law, and because you come from we both come from a common law system. All criminal cases are versus Smith, right, or Jones, or Blackstone, or whatever. So it means that when you're accused of some crime, the Crown is your prosecutor, and the Crown will decide whether you're guilty or not. And of course, if you're
not the Crown, well, it's if it's a criminal matter, it's the jury which determines that.
Yes, but the jury will be directed by
Crown.
the judge.
R stands for Regina, which is the Crown. Yes.
Yes.
DPP.
But
and that's the it's not versus that Americans say that it's against. So the Queen or the King, or the Crown. It's not the Crown. It's the King now, King Charles III.
Yes, Rex or Regina. Yeah. Depending on the
against that little small v means against whoever the defendant.
So the point is that this I think everybody will be able to understand. So if you're a parent and you want to enforce bedtime on your children, your bedtime must be later than the bedtime of your children. So if you want to enforce a bedtime of 7, your bedtime must be later than 7, or you won't be able to enforce it. Because if you're asleep by 6 and your children's bedtime is 7, well, there's nobody to enforce it, right? And for
Correct.
this reason, the monarch always has special rights that are above ordinary people. But the interesting thing about the American Constitution is that it is made quite clear that the president is not above the law, because you may have heard of the right of the people to impeach an American president for high crimes and misdemeanors. So Jefferson thought of that. So even presidents are not above the law. But of course, the Crown,
while they're in the office, yes, exactly, yeah, that's correct, yes, absolutely.
And that was why traditionally members of the royal family who feel that their rights to privacy have been violated, etc., they were warned, don't go to court, because it will just ruin the mystique of the royal family, right? Because if you as Prince Harry are demanding damages from a bunch of newspapers, it just means that you're some commoner asking for your rights from the Crown. and it's like, oh, that's a bit strange and a bit contradictory. But the thing is, unfortunately, even members of the royal family do not now know who the hell they are, because you may know that the Prince of Wales, King Charles, when he was Prince of Wales, said, "I don't want to be defender of the faith. I want to be defender of the faiths of my subjects." So he didn't know he didn't even know where his right to rule came from. He didn't know it came from, well, he should have been, well, the Anglican Church, right? Because if we just disestablish the Church of England, that would be the end of the monarchy. Right? And I
Yep,
know the
absolutely.
Victorians.
The only thing which is interesting when you talk about that is defender of the faith, AMDG, and that's Latin. It's only the Protestant, the Anglican faith, and under the Settlements Act, or what I forget
The Act of
now.
Settlement, yes. So basically,
It
Henry made.
forbode specifically the king cannot be Catholic.
Yeah, he had to be an Anglican, not a
Yeah.
Calvinist, not a Unitarian or an Orthodox. He had to be an Anglican, and that was it. So anyway, people understood.
See, the
sadly, King
problem
Charles doesn't enjoy his
when
First Amendment
we
rights.
talk about religion, we are all of us are conflating. If you say, or anybody claims to be religious, you identify with God or Allah or whatever higher being, whatever your religion is, and you live not for this world, you live for the next world. The problem with Freemasons, the contemporary society, and our total culture, feminism, any ideology is basically for this world. This is the paradise. Live it. Do anything is okay. And that
Yes,
is the
yes.
problem. And that is, again, reverting to the Old Testament, Sodom and Gomorrah. Or I'm not even going to go there. I'm going to go to the last, the Roman Empire, and always say I'm observing our contemporary Western world, and I compare it to 3rd century around Diocletian, one of the last Roman emperors, who before Constantine became the first Christian or Catholic emperor, where he legalized Christianity as the official language rather than a religion rather than paganism, Roman paganism. And this is the decadence which I'm witnessing, and I'm seeing this world, watching this world, and I'm hoping, not hoping, I'm being cynical and sarcastic. I'm from this world, but not of this world. Do you understand when I
Sure.
say I'm not of this world? What I'm trying to say, I am a believer, a true believer in my Catholicism, and that gives me some sort of solace and semblance in my personal life and my family life. That's all I'm saying. I'm not here to convert. I'm not here to teach anyone how to suck eggs. That's my personal things. I'm trying to make this chaotic world, which I live and all of us experience one way or the other. I'm trying to make some sort of, I don't know, solace, peace, which is very hard to get these days.
Yes, and I was going to say that if we really believe in the afterlife, and I think it's actually important. It's not enough to say, oh well, believe in God, because we know from the history of the Jews, we know from the history of the Sadducees that they didn't believe in the afterlife, and now they're extinct. So it's very important to know to get the full benefit of this system of belief. You have to believe that good will be rewarded and evil punished in this life or the next, or you won't act correctly. So that's why martyrdom is necessary. Sometimes, of course, we don't want to be martyrs, being crucified and tortured and whatever. But the point is that if you have principles you must logically and necessarily be prepared to sacrifice for them. So,
Mm,
it can't just be, oh, well, I'm only going to follow my principles if I get rewarded, but not if I'm being punished. Then it means you're just, being bribed, right?
mm. And could I simply add? I mean, if anyone's listening, I don't know how many people are in the chat now. Uh, to be a Catholic, again, it's not. I'm not bragging about salvation or the beauty of the Catholic Church. To be Catholic is to take your cross, and you have to accept your punishment, which is you expect to be frowned upon, laughed at, spat upon. Take your cross and carry it, and that is the hard thing. And through that suffering, and again, I'm talking about the transcendental theological concept, suffering brings you closer to oneself, to the beauty. And I tell my kids, I can give you money and this and that. That's all transient. It's all worldly. It's all passing. The only thing which I can pass, and being a good parent or a grandparent, is if I have not convinced them or brainwashed them, but I give them a good enough option and to use their free will. There's another argument in itself, to pick and choose carefully, and it's
And you
very
have to
very.
lead by example, and
Mm,
obviously you have to
mm,
explain things to them properly. And I'm trying to say that a good analogy would be that this life is but an examination hall to test our suitability to get to the better place in the next
mm.
life.
But if you think it, sort of, I always like to use examples. When all of us were born, the first thing we inhaled air before we started crying. And you think about it, and you live 60, 70, 80, 90 years of age, and the last thing is going to be exhaling air. You were born naked and you die naked. So you inhale, and the last breath will be exhale. And all goals, all the mansions, all the dollars, women, blah blah blah, not
The thing
applicable.
is, if the afterlife exists,
Mm,
then you will be made accountable, right? It's like, oh, and on
mm.
such and such a time you did this, and you weren't even sorry, and then you did this other
It is a
terrible
belief. It's
thing.
it's it's called faith. I totally agree. Look. You can't you have everything in black and white, in pictures or TikTok, and it comes down to a form of belief, and that form of belief, as a lawyer, has to be based on substantial historical theological
It has to
evidence, and it's a
build.
study of theology. I mean, to become an ordinary diocesan priest, it's about 8 or 9 years of study of philosophy and theology, and that is, I mean, wow. I mean, just too much for ordinary people, and even then. You can't decipher everything, like any profession. They're all subgroups, etc., etc. Within it, you know,
Yes, but the
any.
thing is, theology makes it easier
Mm,
to
mm.
get stuff done because I don't know if you've heard of Yuval Harari. Have you heard of him?
No, I haven't. No.
Anyway, he's this um,
What's his name?
Israeli academic, Yuval, Yuval, and his surname is Harari, Hariri, and he
I've
wrote a
heard
book
of
called
that.
Sapiens.
Yeah, Harari. That rings a bell somehow. Go on. Go
Well,
ahead.
he wrote a book called Sapiens, and I actually haven't read it, but I believe he was saying that humans are unique in the animal kingdom for being able to make up stories and think in the abstract, and then just basically fall in love with the story and want to make it come true. And he
Mm,
was sort of talking about religion, because the idea that we have immortal souls, and that we have um, immortality, and that good will be rewarded and evil punished in this life and the next, by a benign and omnipotent God is very attractive, and those who believe in it, enjoy a kind of serenity that those who do not believe in it, fail to benefit from. But also there are political purposes as well as spiritual purposes, because you as a government sometimes need to go on imperial wars, I guess, and then you need your cannon fodder to be prepared to go to horrible foreign places and kill people there in order to advance your empire, which, to be fair to the British, they sort of did that. And for those who didn't want to go, I guess they were transported, as your people were in Australia, by hook or by crook. You
A
just
lot of Irish. Yes, go ahead.
yeah. So sometimes we're not even asked. I mean, there's this question of taking the Queen's shilling. I mean, a lot of people didn't want to go on horrible, ships and die in naval battles, and but they were forced to do it, and they did it, and that obtained the British Empire. Well, the British government, its empire, East India Company. So I mean, it's like it's happened, and we might as well understand why it happened, because we know that the current lot of Westerners would never do any of the things that that their ancestors did. They wouldn't cross oceans. They wouldn't cross continents to do anything. They'd rather die. They'd probably kill themselves if you told them they had to go to colonize Mars or whatever. So I mean, we just have to accept that we are not the people we were, and the reason why the people were our ancestors did all those things is because they must have had some kind of religion that either they really believed in, or were kind of in a way forced into belief, or pretending to believe, by social pressure. And the most important thing of that is marriage, really, because the whole point of religion, any religion, any of the five world religions that you might have heard of, is that it would shame people in their 20s into marrying each other and having children, and forcing them to stay together once they got bored and irritated with each other. That was really the purpose of religion, to create a culture and social pressure that would force people to marry and be responsible parents. And this is all gone. And I'm saying only Sharia will bring it back. Sorry.
Well, why do you say only Sharia law will bring it
Because
back?
I don't see how else you're going to, are you going to
This is my
to
point.
reintroduce blasphemy laws? Are you
No,
really?
but this
I
is
mean,
my
that's
point.
how
I
it
mean,
worked before.
well, certainly Sharia it forces you. I mean, this is the dictatorship of Islam, which well,
But
at this
come
stage.
on, you're a Catholic. You had to go to confession, or your
No, you don't
ancestors
have to.
did.
No,
Not now.
no,
But,
no, no,
but in
no,
the
no,
olden
no.
days, you were forced to go to confession
No,
every
you're not.
year.
No. So this is a vicious rumor. What the seven sacraments? You don't. The beauty about Catholicism, and this is with again free will. How do you reconcile human being, God being omnipotent, Alpha and Omega, creating this people called human race, and then all of a sudden giving them the free will, and then
No, we
telling him
always had
because of
it.
Adam and
The
Eve. I
founding
mean,
fathers.
you know what I'm saying? No, this is
No, because
this is
as a subject of a Christian
the
monarch, you
civilizing thing about
absolutely don't enjoy it.
Christianity. The civilizing the thing about Christianity, where they can think outside the box, is questioning things. See, Islam does not allow you to question.
Yes, of course it does. I don't know why you keep saying that. Just because you only meet the dumb Muslims, but
No,
no,
I'm
okay.
not. I'm dumb. I mean, there's a lot of dumb people. So I mean, that's part of life. What I'm saying is, the beauty, as I see it, about Catholicism is this idea of free will.
But how
In
can you
other
be said
words,
to be
in
free
other
if
words,
you have to follow the religion of your king?
well, you don't have to follow anybody. That's the thing. You do not.
You,
See,
but you,
it's no,
you must have read
no.
of the Toleration
Christianity,
Act.
Christianity. There were a lot of heretics. There were a lot of people who
Yeah, they
simply did
got
not
burnt at the
follow.
stake. They got burnt at the stake.
No,
Why?
they didn't. If they open up their mouth today, what do you get? What do you think? What about being doxxed today? If you're a young man or a
Same thing.
young
There'll
woman and
always
you
be.
start talking the truth, you're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your reputation. See you later. You might as well be dead. I call that absolute cruelty. See,
Look,
this is the thing. Oh, you're putting at the stake. Yes, if you openly propagate it, look at London. You go and talk about genocide. All right, I might mention it's your channel. See how far you're going to get with the police and the establishment. You call that free
yes, there.
speech?
Well, no,
Well,
I do not.
that's
But
tyranny.
basically,
That's
we have
called
to
fucking
understand.
tyranny.
Yes, so that is
Tyranny.
why.
And we're talking about democracy and tyranny. So
Yes,
now you say
so
if
we
this
need
is
to
a
understand.
popular,
Oh,
for example, crusade. If I use that word crusade, you as an Islamic scholar or understanding, what does that conjure up in your mind? Tell me, I'll shut up.
well, knights slaying Saracens.
What when anybody says crusade, positive, negative,
Well, the Muslims think
uh,
of it as very negative, but I mean, for
why?
Christians, they think it's a great thing to go around slaying Jews and Muslims because that's what they
No,
like to do.
no, we don't know your history.
I know that Muslims do not think of crusading as a good thing,
Well,
and I know that Christians think it's a great
yeah,
thing.
no. Well, remember, Islam began in Mecca in Medina, 600 years after Jesus. So all of that land, which we talk about,
Yeah,
Arabia,
there would be a
Israel,
territorial
there were
dispute,
no,
but okay, I
no,
don't really.
there was a Christian land. And where did the rise of Islam? Again, I'm arguing history. Where did they go? They
It was
conquered
an
the Middle East.
imperial. It was an
Yes,
imperial
and
war.
religion. And where did they go first? They went across Gibraltar into today's Spain, right up to where? Toulouse in France. And what happened then?
I
What
don't know
happened then?
what happened.
Well, Isabel, Queen of Spain, got rid of or pushed Islam across the Straits of Gibraltar back to
Okay,
Africa.
okay, yeah,
And,
I
and,
know.
and what happened then?
They
And
pushed them on.
so what happened then? Now Islam went through the other way, which is called today's Turkey. So all of those, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, they were all Christian, Catholic.
Okay, there
Catholic
will
land.
obviously.
It wasn't Jewish land. Wasn't Muslim. Muslims weren't around for 600 bloody years.
Okay, so
So
okay.
Crusades. First crusade was 1002.
All
Okay,
right, all
to
right. I mean, I do not,
reconquer.
I do not. So
So
not a.
now we're talking about the sword, which is still on the South Arabian flag. Look at the sword on the green flag and the Arabic writing.
Well, at least they're
So
being
so the
honest about
Islam
it.
went, and the Islam went right then across the Bosporus. They went into Bulgaria,
Yeah. Okay,
Turkey, and Greece,
okay.
right up to
Jim,
just hold
I
on,
have to go.
right up to 10, 1566, the gates of Vienna.
Yes. All right. What
And that's
about
where you
it?
got pockets of Islam in Albania, Bosnia, and
Yeah.
etc. etc.
What
So
about it?
what I'm saying, it was Europe would not be today a Christian, which is a Catholic. The course of history would have changed if they succeeded. So they went from one end, they went left through Spain and France. They were pushed
Yeah.
back,
So there've
and they
been
went the
wars
other way
between
around.
Muslims
So
and Christians.
what's
So
now
what? So
happening?
bloody what?
What my argument is, it's now changing, and I agree and concur what you're saying in terms of history. Western decadent Europe is the fall of the Western civilization as we know. The only slight hope which we have is in the East. I'm talking about Russia. And I'm no friend of communism
Well, there
or
are lots of Muslims
Putin.
in Russia. There are lots of
No,
Muslims in.
yeah, but there were 15 republics up to
Okay, you still want to. You want
19.
to. You still want your
1989.
Christian thing. So I'm so
Well,
so you
no,
obviously haven't
preserving,
learned your lesson.
exactly,
You
exactly.
haven't learned your lesson. You want to
I've got,
carry on being
no,
idolaters.
no, idolaters, no. What
No,
do you
no,
mean
no, no,
idolaters?
no. Complete lack of and you still won't read the Quran because you're convinced it's rubbish. But I'm just saying,
No, it's not
to
Quran.
you,
But
lawyer to
you
lawyer.
came,
No, no, because I want
you're a
to.
new,
I have
Quran
to
is a
go
new kid
now.
on the
I have to
block.
go soon.
Quran is a new kid on the block 600 years after
Yeah, it doesn't matter,
Judaism
but
and
you won't read it
Christianity.
because you won't read it.
So
You'll never read it, right?
I will
Because
read it, but
you know,
I will read it. The problem I'm having, and first of all,
yeah,
I haven't
because
got
you keep
time.
talking over me. Because I want to go
All right,
soon, and I want you to
yeah,
understand this very
go ahead.
simple point, lawyer to lawyer. Because basically, the law is the algorithm of human behavior. People, individuals, will do things that reward them and will avoid things that punish them. So the law does control human behavior to this extent.
Mm,
So if
mm.
you want to discourage undesirable behavior, you have to punish it. If you want to encourage desirable behavior, you have to reward it and privilege the people who do it. It's that simple, but you refuse to do it because it's Islam, right?
Well, it's radical. It
What's
is
so
radical.
radical about
Well,
using
you know,
logic?
beheading people, to me, to
It
my
doesn't say it's
understanding.
just a death penalty, right? It was just a it's just a death penalty. This is a way of it's the ancient way of saying death penalty, right? I mean, you know some Tudor history. That was how people no, actually aristocrats had the privilege of being beheaded. The commoners would be, well, I don't know, they would be burnt at the stake, they would be drawn and quartered, there would be all kinds
Mm,
of
mm.
imagination. And it's like, well, if we're a member of the aristocracy and we get on the wrong side of the king, let it be swift. But anyway, I mean, Anne
Mm,
Boleyn said,
mm.
Can I have a French swordsman who'll do it in one stroke and not one of the locals who'll probably miss because he's drunk. So
Yeah, yeah,
but
that
it was
I know.
considered
Yeah,
a privilege, the
yeah,
swiftest,
yeah.
kindest way to dispatch someone, and until they invented the gallows. But what I'm saying, and I hope you know what ultra vires means, don't
Mm.
you, as a
Yes,
lawyer? So,
yes.
so would you agree
Outside,
that Western
the
governments have
ultravirus is
acted ultra
outside.
vires?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead. You
Yes,
go
yes.
on.
So I'm just saying, a lot of governments have acted ultra vires
Outside the law. Yes.
outside divine law.
Mm.
So I mean, that's the
So
quickest.
what our argument is that any law is embedded in culture and tradition, and the Catholic claim we got a longer proven historical culture and
But
tradition
you lost the
than
wars of
other.
the Reformation, and
No,
then
yeah, but what I'm saying, no,
Vatican II,
and we are in. That's why. That's
Franco.
why. That's why. Just let me finish. That's why it's the Islamic laws exactly are also embedded, or any type of laws, including primitive cultures in Papua New Guinea, whatever. They've got their customs and embedded in their
Yeah, you don't
beliefs.
have to
And
adopt that.
Christianity, to me, is more civilizing. Doesn't mean it's right. It's
No,
at the
but don't you
moment.
understand? Don't you understand, Joe? These are just
Hmm,
culture. Culture is basically what people are allowed to do by the law and by the moral thinking of
no,
the people. But it's always a product of law and morality. But if you change the moral system, of course the culture is going to change. But for the good or better, it depends on which one you choose and how you enforce it. And
hmm,
I'm saying, you know if the problem is, white people not marrying each other, and you want to make white people marry each other, the solution is simple, right? That there's only one way to do it. You have to forbid extramarital sex. You have to, right? And you have to ban no for divorce, right? It's simple. But you don't want to
hmm.
do it because it will
No,
be,
well,
oh, we were wrong, and
there are other
people are going
reasons.
to
There are other
yeah, people are
political
going to get
reasons.
angry. I know. All
Yeah,
these feminists, and they're going to call you all kinds of names and call you,
there are reasons why that come about. There's again, various
well,
theories
but,
about that.
but also, I think a lot of men are afraid to discuss these things with their female relations or even their wives, because under the laws of no fault divorce, your wife can just say, "Well, bye. I don't want to be married to a sexist, fascist, blah 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 blah." So I get it that you're
Absolutely.
afraid. I get so that's why you are all in trouble, and the problem's just going to get worse. The more you keep ignoring it, and you're basically kicking the can down the road, and your descendants, if you have any, will not thank you for ignoring the problem. That's all I'm trying to
But
say.
you can't blame it on little
Yeah, I'm
people.
going to blame it on you guys. Yeah, I am
No,
because you already know what
the
the
elite.
problem is.
It's the elite. I mean, today's structure is totally different. I'll just give you an example. Medieval structure. If your lord, taxed you too much, you get all the peasants with torches and and spikes. You know where he or they lived, and you can burn his castle down. These days, it's faceless men of Strasbourg, Hague,
Nobody's
etc.
prepared to
etc.
martyr themselves, right?
But
Because
no, but you don't know.
they
You
believe
don't
in an
know who these
afterlife.
people are. They're faceless
Yeah, we
people.
know
That's
who
my
they
point.
are.
No, I
It's the
mean,
CIA.
yeah, well,
It's
yeah, exactly.
whoever
Yeah,
runs.
yeah. But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't.
It's Keir
Who are
Starmer.
they?
It's
Yeah,
yeah.
like he's only a front man. All these presidents
Yes,
are
I
just front
know.
men. They're not. They're not. They're lapdogs. They're not.
It's of
They're
course
the
it's the CIA.
spokesman.
It's
Yeah,
the CIA. So talk to
yeah.
the CIA.
But you
Divide
can't.
and rule the CIA.
You can't. You can't.
Yes, of course you can.
Well, you
First
try.
we have an address. They have an address, right? The CIA have an address. The State Department have an address.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I know. So what? What's the solution? Just
The solution is
get
for
a couple of
for
thousand
people.
people.
No, no, no,
Yeah,
no, no. It can be done on social media, and all you have to do is,
you,
well, discuss these things, but you dare not. Most
you
people dare
can't
not
mention
discuss
it.
it using their real names because it's like,
But it
yeah,
doesn't
but
matter.
then
I mean,
what's martyrdom? That's martyrdom, right? If you believe in your principles, then you need to show
well,
that you believe in them and say, do your
well,
worst.
well, that is my point. I'm content with my faith and with my beliefs, and I'm not part of. Luckily, thank the Lord, I'm not part of this world, which I think, again, I sound like a very conservative person, which I am. But what I see around is not. I'm not optimistic. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yes, it's because nobody is prepared to take the risk and say,
Well,
it is
yeah,
feminism. Feminism is our religion, our sacred religion, that even the men who complain about feminism dare not call out. It's the elephant in the room.
yeah, I agree with that 100%.
And therefore these laws need to change. But it's like, but if I say that, my wife might divorce me. Um, unchaste women will refuse to have sex with me. Oh dear, I can't do it. I guess I'm trapped then. Oh dear.
Mm.
All right.
Good on
I
you.
have
Look, nice talking to you. I have to go.
yes, me too.
It's nearly 10 o'clock here. Bloody hell.
Mm-mm. It's 2 o'clock here. No, no, sorry, it's 1 o'clock here.
Well, in the afternoon, is it? Yeah, that's right.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Well,
Nice talking to you. We'll catch up sometime later, hopefully.
yes, yes. I think we've discussed
We
many
cut.
important things.
We covered vast topics and issues, I suppose.
Yes, I think we have. Hopefully,
All right.
more people will listen to it later. Thank you again, Jim.
All the best. All right.
Take
See ya. Good
care.
night. Good afternoon to you. Good night to me. All right.
Yes, good
See you
day
later.
to
Bye.
everyone. Take care.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.